It's been a year since we last came together to celebrate this project and its work and its growth. And my, what a year it has been. It has been truly incredible. I, once again, am not Larry Golden, but I am very pleased to bring Larry up here to tell you about just how much has gone on in this past year. And before we do that, two housekeeping things. One is, I hope you all bid on the paintings out there for the silent auction. And our honoree, Scott TUROW, will be here for a little while after the event to sign books. And as we know, he knows how to write, so I would encourage you all to take advantage of that. Now, Mr. Larry Golden, Executive Director.
Thank you, Kathy. Isn't it great to have her back for another year? As you know, she's got a big hook in her pocket there that she's going to pull out to make sure that, particularly that I don't go over time, as Steve Beckett knows. He had to use the hook the other night with me. So there are too many people here to both acknowledge and thank for both working on the event tonight and also just attending. But of the folks that have been working on it, I just have to single out Sheila Stock-Smith. Many of you have been running away from her now for a few months as she's approached you. We couldn't have pulled this off without Sheila's help, but also without the help of our chief staff person, Rhonda Keach, who I suspect is out in the hall, and if I wanted her to introduce herself, she would not do it anyways. So, but if you see either one of them, thank them for us very much. And I haven't seen her here, but you know, I'm sure she's here. You know, I wanted to acknowledge two of the people who helped make this whole thing possible. One of them is Nancy Ford. Is Nancy here? Please stand, Nancy. I got here a little bit late because I was with Scott and we were running behind with the long line for the book signing, and so I haven't been able to get around to say thank you to all of you, but you know that you're in my heart, and thank you very much for being here. And the other person is Bill Clutter, and I don't believe Bill's here tonight, but again, without Nancy and Bill, this project would not be where it is. It's been, as Kathy said, it's been an incredible year. In particular because we've come before you having just achieved an exoneration that John Hanlon's going to talk to you about in a few minutes, of an individual who spent the last 12 years of his life in custody, 30 years old now, trying to put together the pieces. All of you can just sort of imagine what it would be like going into custody at age 18 and coming out, you know, 12 years later, actually with probably very little hope during that period of seeing the light of day in the way that he has. And so John's going to be sharing a little bit more about that with you, but there's nothing that those of us in this work value more than having that kind of an event happen. Having an individual who's been in prison, who we know is innocent, who is actually innocent, be able to walk out. And that's what the innocence movement is really all about. We entered the year 2011 with no attorneys, but just last month, former UIS legal studies student and paralegal at Brown, Hay, and Stevens, Erica Nichols Cook, joined our legal director, John Hanlon, and I want Erica to stand as well. Where are you, Erica? Over here. We haven't had the chance to properly introduce Erica to the community in a smaller event, so hopefully some of you will just go over and say welcome to her. What an incredible thing it was to have somebody who had come out of our university unexpectedly, not because of the fact that they weren't trained well, but we just hadn't quite expected that, who left, went to law school, and came back now as one of our lawyers. And then we welcomed legal studies professor and lawyer Gwen Jordan to give us part of her time on an assignment through the Center for State Policy and Leadership. And Gwen, where are you? Would you stand also? And I'm hoping that, again, people will get to know Gwen. She's got incredible background and experience, and she's going to be helping us particularly with some of our northern cases as we move ahead. And also to acknowledge again the center director, David Racine. David, please stand. He's also one of these humble guys trying to get him to stand up and be acknowledged. But without David and the center's support, we wouldn't be where we are. With this increased legal capacity has come an expansion of our work in terms of numbers as well as in geography. In 2011 alone, we had 208 requests for assistance just in our office alone. And 74 of those were actually located in northern counties of Illinois. We responded to this in a couple of ways. First, by reaching out to our friends at Northern Illinois University College of Law to increase our collaboration to include the 3 public law schools in the state of Illinois. And Dean Jennifer Rosado is here. Would you stand, Jennifer? I'm pleased that she has been able to make it. We haven't really started this work in a systematic way yet, but we're really looking forward to doing that. And we're looking in terms of a long-term relationship with both Northern, the University of Illinois, of course, in Champaign-Urbana, and Southern Illinois University. All having students, I will say, really clamoring almost to work on behalf of the innocent. Secondly, we did not make a big typo on the front of our program. In fact, tonight, I'm proud to be able to say that because of the demand for cases up north, we just finished an exoneration, as I said, of John Grayson, which is in Kane County, that we've now decided tonight to announce the fact that we are naming our project the Illinois Innocence Project. Go ahead. Thank you. I obviously have to adjust my delivery to that of my dear friend Dick Durbin, who's here, and so that I can get applause at the right points. So I'm sure he will do much better at that than I. But this reflects our new capacity and the continued support that you provide us, without which we would not be able to do this. So our success is reflected tonight by people from the legal community that I can't even begin to recognize. Many of them are sponsors. Please look at the people who are listed in the program and thank them for us as well. We just are so much appreciative of this, and in fact, we dearly need the monetary support now even more than ever, even though we've received a couple of big grants over the last couple of years. So our success is also reflected by the attendance tonight of Senator Durbin, Dean Smith from the University of Illinois Law School, who will be introduced in a few minutes, Dean Cynthia Fontaine from Southern Illinois University Law School, who will also be introduced, along with the many UIS and law students from the law schools who've contributed to this success. And before I leave, I want all of the students, whether you're UIS, SIU, U of I, to please stand. I know you'll have another chance later on, but I wanted to take advantage of this. So will all the students just please stand, those of you who are attending here. Thank you again so much for being here tonight and for your support. You have a great evening ahead under able supervision of Kathy Saltmarsh.
Thank you, Larry. That is indeed really, really exciting news, all of that stuff. I am now very, very happy to introduce a fellow that we actually honored last year, but due to technical difficulties, the video link kind of screwed up his speech. But Senator Dick Durbin is our man in the United States Senate, and we are lucky to have him. He, in a policy-making capacity, supports criminal justice policies that are good and effective and wise, and his staff has been incredibly supportive of this project. And I think that we all know that in a time where we see a certain lack of dignity sometimes, we never see that from him. And we can see a certain lack of wisdom, but we never see that from him. And we see strong leadership because he is, in his heart and soul, I think, a defender, a leader, and he's our neighbor and a citizen of Springfield, Senator Durbin.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. My apologies for not being here last year. I was honored by the award. Wish that I could have been present to receive it for many reasons. I have many friends in this room. Go back to my early days as a struggling lawyer in this town and a more struggling political candidate, and things are a little different today. Throughout most of this journey, Larry Golden has always been there. Larry and I were business partners in an extremely successful venture, Crow's Mill School. And for those who think it's an educational institution, no, it was a tavern. And we developed a close friendship in those days. And I came to understand Larry's strength. One of his great strengths is meetings. He loves meetings. Does he still love meetings? Forum committees, let's have a meeting. Yosh, is he still doing all that? I imagine he is. But anyway, Larry, congratulations for all that you've done for this project. It is really amazing, nothing short of amazing, what has been accomplished here in terms of justice and in terms of leadership. I thank everyone in this room who is here supportive of what is happening, and especially want to thank Larry. I want to thank the law students who stood a few moments ago, and I was thinking as they stood, I can't remember a thing I did in law school that even came close to this significance, except maybe once, and that was 44 years ago last week when I was sitting in the law library and somebody came to the door and announced that Dr. Martin Luther King had been shot. Washington went in turmoil, in riot, and pretty soon the courts were overwhelmed with people who had been detained and arrested. And they became so desperate for legal representation, they came back to that library and said, second, 2 L's and 3 L's, come outside, please. Came outside and said, come with us, you're coming to the court, you're going to be representing criminal defendants. I thought to myself, I don't think I've taken that course yet. So whatever happened, it was something like justice, and it all ended well. But that was my closest occasion to come to grips with the criminal defense bar. I didn't do much of it as a private attorney. But I've certainly had a lot to do with the Senate Judiciary Committee and the issues before it. And I thank many of you in this room who made a difference in what we've undertaken. Ted Gottfried, where are you? Ted grabbed me at the airport, you can usually find me there, and told me several years ago that they were running into problems with the Appellate Defender Project and other projects because too many law students were coming out of school deep in debt and couldn't consider becoming criminal defense attorneys or prosecutors. And Ted inspired me to come up with a bill. And it eventually was named after a gentleman who had started this crusade before me, John R. Justice. And the John R. Justice Fellowship programs now will defer the student debt of those who will commit to at least 3 years as prosecutors or defenders. I wish there were a lot more money involved. Let me start off. I wish law school were a heck of a lot cheaper, but until it is, I wish there were more money involved to inspire those who want to go into public service. And the idea started right at that table with that man. Ted, you deserve a round of applause. Thank you. It's another issue that I've taken up that might be of interest to you. Last November, I was out in New York City. I spent a lot more time there than I used to because Our daughter had twins, boy and a girl, 5 months ago, and my daughter left me for another man. He now weighs about 15 pounds, and he has a little sister. So I spend a lot of time in New York trying to find Loretta, and we just got back this morning. Well, last November, I was in a restaurant when I got a phone call, and it was the president, and he was calling to wish me happy birthday, to congratulate Loretta and me on our new grandchildren, and to tell me something of great significance, the best gift he could have given me, that he had commuted the sentence of a woman from Alton, Illinois, Eugenia Jennings. Eugenia Jennings was a victim of the crack cocaine sentencing disparity. She had been sentenced to 25 years in prison, and she'd served 12 of them. She left 3 children to be raised by her brother. I met her brother at a hearing we had on the crack cocaine sentencing disparity, and decided this was a cause worth taking up. I wanted to bring this where it should be, 1-to-1, but I couldn't. It was at 100-to-1 for those who follow it, and many do. And we managed to bargain and compromise back and forth until it came down to 18-to-1. Still grossly unfair, but dramatically better than where it was. She was one of those victims, and there are many like her. Well, the bill was signed into law by President Obama after I negotiated it with Jeff Sessions of Alabama. You should have seen that. And Eugenia Jennings was the first commutation that the president offered, and this lady was able to spend Christmas at home with her children. She's fighting cancer and doing okay, but she became the face of this issue for me, a face from our own home state of Illinois. Go back further in time to service on the committee when Patrick Leahy asked me to co-sponsor a bill to start funding these efforts to use DNA, this new thing called DNA, to see if it could become significant in terms of reviewing sentencing that had taken place in years before. Little did we know what it would mean, but it's meant a lot. To some people in this room, very personally meant a lot, but to those of you working in this project, many times that is the hook you were looking for, to find that claim of innocence. The last thing I want to say is about the honoree tonight, Scott TUROW. This is an extraordinary man. He liberated himself largely from his law practice to write books. Did pretty darn well. I liberated myself to be in politics. He gets paid for his books, I make speeches for free. But in all seriousness, what Scott did, working with former Governor Ryan on the commission to deal with the death penalty, had significance far beyond our state and far beyond our nation. I will tell you, as a person who studies politics, the drift of public opinion on the issue of death penalty you can look at the pivot point with George Ryan's decision and Scott's commission that worked with him. You can look at the pivot point in public opinion on the issue of death penalty, not just in this country, but in many other countries around the world. That's how significant his commitment has been. He is certainly deserving to be your honoree, and I was certainly honored to be the same last year. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Senator, as always. Timely, concise, well-spoken. I would like to mention before we go on that we are being filmed tonight by WSEC, the public television station associated with UIS, and so all your friends and family who maybe couldn't be here, they can see it this weekend on WSEC and soon to be on YouTube. So encourage them to watch and contribute. The next person that I am very honored to introduce, because I am actually a proud graduate of the University of Illinois, class of '92 for the law school, and way before that for undergrad. But when I moved to Springfield, I really was pretty unaware of the true jewel that UIS is, and I'm happy that I have been able to be involved with UIS. And recently, in 2011, the school got a new chancellor. Chancellor Cook is here, and she is making great strides in building a community sense. And I have to say, as I was Googling her, any chancellor that has an event called Chocolate with a Chancellor is really good. So here to present the award to our sister campus in Champaign, Chancellor Cook.
me say, if someone would remind you, we'll get you an invitation to the one next year for the chocolate. Right. Because it was really good. I agree. I agree. Well, thank you so much, and thank you all for being here this evening. As the new chancellor of the University of Illinois Springfield, I am delighted to be able to say for the first time that I am part, and my campus is part, of this wonderful event tonight. Of course, we're celebrating the achievements and the contributions of the Illinois Innocence Project based on the Springfield campus. Two critical elements in the mission of UIS are to provide intellectually rich opportunities for our students and to serve our communities, local, regional, national, and global. What I appreciate so much about the Illinois Innocence Project is that it weaves together those two elements perfectly. Not only bringing justice to members of our communities who have been unjustly convicted, but also providing students with a hands-on learning experience that is of great value in their education. I want to congratulate you, Larry, the executive director of the project, along with all the members of the staff and the many students who contributed so much to this very, very important program that is based at our university. It is my honor tonight to recognize the important collaboration between the UIS Innocence Project and the University of Illinois College of Law on our sister campus in Champaign-Urbana. I sometimes refer to that as our branch campus, but I won't do that tonight. I think that would be an error this evening, so I won't do it. But when I do it, I really do it with great love. In 2009, two students from the UIUC Law School, with the supervision of attorney and law school professor Stephen Beckett, began assisting the Illinois Innocence Project in one of the most challenging cases the project has taken on. Today, there are 5 students working on that case alone. Within a short time, other students joined in under the supervision of legal director John Hanlon, and with the additional help of University of Illinois professor Andy Leipold. This semester, there are 23 University of Illinois law students learning about actual innocence and assisting on project cases in the Innocence Project. An example of their work can be found in the case of John Grayson, who was exonerated, as you all know, on March 6th, and who you will meet later tonight. University of Illinois student Scott Schott assisted in putting together this case for exoneration. It is likely that Mr. Grayson would not be here but for the work of the talented and dedicated individuals who have been involved in this effort. I want to especially recognize the leadership of Professors Beckett and Leipold. These lawyer teachers have demonstrated a commitment to justice and an understanding of the very special educational value of this project, and their efforts deserve recognition. The UIS Innocence Project has developed a model for combining education and legal practice that is of great consequence, not only for our students and our clients, but for our entire country. This collaboration between the UIS Downstate Innocence Project, oops, I need to cross out Downstate, between the UIS Innocence Project and the University of Illinois Law School is an important part of that model. Will the UIUC students here tonight who have been part of this effort please stand and be recognized? Where are you? There they are. And will Dean Smith and Professors Beckett and Leipold please come forward to accept this Defenders of the Innocent Award.
As many of you know, I'm an old trial lawyer, and so I'm the one that gets to talk. The collaboration between the University of Illinois Springfield and the University of Illinois College of Law at Urbana-Champaign, you notice I said Urbana-Champaign, is remarkable. It truly is a a model. It's something that the Chancellor and I have been talking about earlier this evening, looking for other ways that our campuses, sister campuses, can collaborate. But I will tell you on behalf of the University of Illinois College of Law, the best thing about this, as far as I'm concerned, is my students and the clients that they represent. That's what this is all about. It isn't about administrators. It isn't about professors. It's about students, and ultimately it's about the clients. This has been, so far, a tremendous experience, and that five-person case that was challenging is still challenging and still goes on. I know on behalf of Andy and I, we just love the fact that our dean supports this program. He gets pressed for so many different things. For him to recognize the wisdom and vision for this program is of great benefit to us and ultimately to our students. Thank you for the award. We truly appreciate it.
I remember having Professor Beckett in TrialAd. Next, I'd like to introduce somebody who is a proud graduate of Southern Illinois University, class of 2010, and he's also the new generation of public servants. Representative Art Turner has been in the state legislature for just a short time, but he follows in the footsteps of his father, who served for quite a while and was a constant drumbeat on issues of criminal justice. So I invite you to welcome to the podium Representative Art Turner, Jr. to present the award to Southern Illinois University.
Thank you all. It's truly an honor to be here tonight to present from my alma mater. SIU law students have been working with the project, the Illinois Innocence Project, since 2010, and their involvement demonstrates how one voice can make a difference. Jennifer Donnelly graduated from UIS with a fire in her belly. She wanted to continue in law school the work she had done as an intern with the project, and a collaboration was born. Jennifer and 11 other SIU law students, under the direction of John Hanlon and Professors Bill Schroeder and Chris Behan, gather evidence, review court files, interview inmates and witnesses, and actually go to court on the project's cases. Their work most recently led to the drafting and presenting of a posthumous petition for a pardon on behalf of Grover Thompson, who was convicted in 1981 and died in prison in 1996. This injustice is difficult to digest, but without this project, it would have gone unrecognized. These students and faculty have been invaluable, and their continued collaboration with the project is crucial to its continued success. As a graduate of the law school, class of 2010, and a policymaker with a deep concern for our criminal justice system, I'm honored to present this award tonight to my alma mater. Will Dean Fontaine, Professor Schroeder, and Professor Behan please come forward to accept the award?
It's wonderful to be here this evening. It's wonderful to get this award on behalf of the school, and wonderful to have Art Turner, who I remember very well as a frightened first-year law student just a few years ago, presenting it to us. But like Professor Beckett, I feel very strongly that the most important part of this work is our students. I will forever be grateful for Jen Donnelly and also Angela Rollins, one of our students who is here today, for wanting so much to make a difference, that they did all the groundwork to establish our relationship with the Downstate Illinois Innocence Project, for working hard to work with our then interim Dean Frank Hodek to lay the groundwork so that they could help people who could not help themselves. That's been an inspiration to me as a professor. It's been an inspiration to me to look at absolute dedication and devotion that all of these students have shown. And to know that this work can pay off with doors literally being opened so that the innocent can walk out free means everything to all of us. And it's a very wonderful and moving thing to be a part of this movement. I'd also like to thank Larry Golden, who is an inspiration to all of us, a leader, and somebody who loves this work and has dedicated his life to it. Thank you very much for this award.
Don't take that one. Now, I have to tell you that in the organizational meetings, when we had the discussions of who introduces the introducers, and it came to the next introducer, there was very little discussion because I said, I'm doing it. And I gave myself more time than I gave everybody else, too. So I am thrilled to be introducing to you a good friend and somebody who has been just an incredible colleague. Tom Sullivan. He has been a member of our legal community in this state for many, many years. And I first encountered him when he chaired the Governor's Commission on Capital Punishment, and my then boss, Ted Gottfried, was a member, and Scott TUROW served on it. And I was impressed when I went to those meetings at the level of discourse. And I was further impressed when Tom didn't just flop the 89 recommendations on the governor's desk and walk away, but tenaciously, relentlessly talked and wrote and nudged the Supreme Court, legislators, me, until death penalty reform was enacted. It wasn't everything we wanted it to be, but it was a damn sight better and than what we had. And I will say that in the heat of that fight, in what I thought, frankly, was the dying hours of death penalty reform, I got a call from Senator, not then President, but Senator John Cullerton, who said, Scott TUROW has an idea. I just got off the phone with him, and he has a guy you should call. So my colleague Jim Covington and I called Scott TUROW, and he had a suggestion of a very fine police officer who was able to help us negotiate through a very gnarly provision and get the bill to the point where law enforcement could support it. So over the years, Tom has reformed the death penalty in the great state of Illinois. He has written many articles about it. He has argued and won United States Supreme Court cases, and at a time when most people would have been retiring and enjoying his grandchildren, as he most definitely does, he decided to take a little trip to Guantanamo Bay and has successfully represented some of the detainees there. But I think the thing that says the most about Tom is the fact that when John Hanlon called him to see if he would be willing to present this award tonight, he said, well, I'm supposed to be flying to New Mexico, but what the heck? I'll delay it a day. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome an esteemed member of the legal community, a very good friend, Tom Sullivan.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. And as I look around, I see the future here in the students that are here. They're the ones that will be doing the work long after we're gone, and I hope you stick with it, the young men and women that are here. I'm here to introduce Scott TUROW. I hired Scott as an assistant state's attorney back in about 1978 or so. And I made the mistake at that time, which I have rued to this day, of extracting a firm promise from him that he would never write a book about me. But in any event, you can't always tell the future. Scott was one of the fine assistant U.S. attorneys. He and Jeremy Margolis and I tried the single most important case I tried as United States attorney, the one against Attorney General Scott, Bill Scott, who was tried and convicted of tax evasion, and then went on to work extensively on the so-called Graylord investigation of the Cook County judiciary that we had instituted. He has done a great deal of work in the area of innocence, and he was one of the key lawyers in the so-called Cruz-Hernandez case out in Wheaton in DuPage County. They were eventually, after much struggle, exonerated and released. As Kathy said, he served on the Governor's Commission on Capital Punishment with me and some of the others who were here. He wrote a wonderful little book called Ultimate Punishment that I think had a lot to do and will continue to have a lot to do with getting rid of the death penalty throughout the United States, which is, so far as I'm able to tell, a very mistaken and unfortunate law that we have left over from our ancestors. His writings I won't say anything about because the public has already acclaimed him as one of the great lawyer writers of our time, lawyer mystery writers. And he has managed every 3 years or so to come up with another bestseller that captures the interest. And Scott, what was the name of that man who played the lead in The Presumed Innocent? Who? Harrison Ford, that's it, yeah. I have noticed as I've entered this 82nd year, the inability to retain the names of people. But he is a dear friend of mine, and 2 beautiful daughters, and a wonderful family man. And I'll tell you what I admire most about Scott TUROW. He is obviously intelligent and forthright and honorable. But the thing that captures me the most is his constancy. He is the constant man. He is no different today than he was the day I first met him. There's no phoniness or puffed up ego about Scott TUROW. He's just the guy. Does that say I'm finished?
No.
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Well, I am. Actually,
you have as much time as you need.
No, I'm finished.
I'm putting it on
I get the message, Kathy. Scott, come on up here and get this award, which I am most pleased to give you on behalf of this wonderful organization.
Well, I want to thank, first of all, the many supporters of the Illinois Innocence Project who are here, because they would not be doing their good work without you. I want to say how honored I am to be here with the previous winners of this award, people like my friend Mike Metnick and Senator Durbin. You know, it would be hard to convince the great majority of Americans that public life is full of talented, honorable people. But certainly we in Illinois are uniquely blessed. And I really believe we have the greatest senator serving in the United States Senate, serving us. And Senator Durbin makes all of us proud so often that he is our senator. So thank you for your service and dedicating your life to the cause of justice in the way you have. I am humbled and flattered to receive this award. There are many people in this room who know that I am not really deserving of it, and fortunately, I am among them. There are, and I don't say that out of false modesty, but you know, my life is a divided life. I've been privileged to work on some great cases and some great causes, which Tom was kind enough to mention, but there are lots of people here, like Ted Gottfried, or John Hanlon, you know, or Mike, or Tom, who have really given their lives to being defenders of the innocents, full-time for many, many, many years. And I am their great admirers for their dedication, and to use a word Tom used, constancy. Certainly no one has had a greater impact on my life as a lawyer than Tom Sullivan. He, as he said, hired me in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I served in both the U.S. Merit Selection Commission, which Senator Durbin was kind enough to appoint both Tom and me to, which made recommendations to Senator Durbin and Senator Mosley Braun on appointees to the federal judiciary in the U.S. Attorney's Office, the U.S. Marshal. And I served with Tom when he was chair of Governor Ryan's Capital Punishment Commission. But of course, no experience mattered more to me than the fact that I came into the practice of law at Tom's right elbow as an assistant U.S. attorney who, in my first year of practice, found myself assigned as the junior prosecutor to what really was, for many of us, the case of a lifetime against the sitting Attorney General of this state, William J. Scott, who, among other things, was far and away the most popular elected official in the state. He had won re-election with an 84% mandate when we proceeded to trial against him. And of course, Tom was somewhat feared when he came to the U.S. Attorney's Office because his whole experience was as an antagonist of that office. He'd been a defense lawyer, I think, for 26 years when he became U.S. Attorney, and I happened to be an intern in the office when he on his first day, and he called all the assistants into the ceremonial courtroom on the 25th floor of the Dirksen building, and he looked at him and he said, "If I ever catch any of you doing anything unfair, I will fire you." And of course, that scared all of them. It sounded pretty good to me, though, because I was hoping for a job in the office, and it sounded like there might be some turnover. But I really was privileged. I did not do a judicial clerkship, but my time with Tom really, especially working on the Scott case, was definitely the formative period in my life as a lawyer, and I am grateful to him for any of the good habits I have as a lawyer, and do not hold him responsible for the many bad ones. But certainly, from Tom Sullivan, you can learn first and foremost dogged dedication to the cause of justice, and I thank Tom for nurturing that in me. I do have to recall a Sunday morning at 7 a.m. while we were on trial in the Scott case when Tom called my house, and he said to my former wife, Annette, this is Tom Sullivan, and she responded, of course, who else would call at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning? But that doggedness in pursuit of justice is a trait I greatly admire in Tom. It led him, although he rarely gets credit for it, to initiate the Gaylord investigations, and he did it in the face of somewhat questionable Illinois Supreme Court precedent that would have seemed to have prohibited it. So he literally was putting his right to practice law on the line, but he knew what was right and he knew what had to be done. And frankly, the Circuit Court of Cook County is a much healthier, much finer place today, and that began with Tom Sullivan's efforts and his courage. In 1994, I was representing Alejandro Hernandez, one of the co-defendants in the celebrated and infamous Nicarico case. And Rolando Cruz's lawyer, Larry Marshall, called me, and he said, you know, Scott, I'm thinking of establishing a center for wrongful convictions at Northwestern. And he said, I want to do it in part because I think that this innocence issue will be a way to turn around public opinion about the death penalty. And I, in my wisdom, I was, of course, full of fire and fury about the Nicarico case. That was hard for me when I got involved in that defense to believe that people had actually been treated that way in the United States of America. They had been railroaded in the most ugly way imaginable. But I assumed at that point in time in 1994 that their case was anomalous, that it was just a matter of a few bad apples in one prosecutor's office. And I didn't get it, and I said to Larry, oh, you know that's not really the problem with the death penalty. Innocence isn't the problem with the death penalty. And I probably would still say that, but of course I grotesquely underestimated how widespread the problem of innocence is throughout our criminal justice system. I salute Larry most of all because he had, in point of fact, found the pivot point. I think that's a word Senator Durbin used before, in terms of American sentiment about the death penalty. Because through the pioneering work that began with Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld in New York through the use of DNA, in demonstrating the reality that there were many people on death row in the United States, 130 of them now established, to be legally innocent of the charges that put them on death row. It has caused Americans to rethink capital punishment, and it undoubtedly had a significant role in the reversal of field that took place here in the state of Illinois. Somebody mentioned my friend John Cullerton before. And after I got to know John originally after the Capital Punishment Commission had finished its report, and at that point John was the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it was late in the legislative session. They were having hearings nonstop. I was testifying in support of the recommendations of our commission, and John, on the record, publicly said, you know, look, you've got 7 senators sitting here. He said, I'm not giving any secrets away in telling you that all of them think now and then about running for higher office. And they all know that when they do it, they will be defined by their opponents by 1 or 2 votes in long legislative careers. And if we do anything about the death penalty, that is what is going to be used by our opponents to define us. And I take particular pleasure in telling that story because it was John Cullerton who called me probably 3 years ago. And he said, you know, this was after the innocence movement had taken hold, after the state did not turn on its ear when Governor Ryan commuted those on death row, or when then State Senator Obama led the way to serious death penalty reform in this state. And John called, he said, you know, I think we have a chance to abolish the death penalty in this state. And he said, and I'll tell you why. He said, it's because we've changed minds of conservatives. He said, they're not going to come out and say it publicly, but a lot of them no longer believe that it's worth the fight. They too are discouraged. They too have had second thoughts. And I take my hat off to Senate President Cullerton for the role he played, along with many, many others, in moving capital punishment reform through the General Assembly. Of course, the fact that the death penalty is no longer law in Illinois is an achievement for the General Assembly, Governor Quinn, and the people of the state of Illinois, but it does not solve, and to some extent obscures a bit the problem of innocence, because we care about innocence the most when somebody's life is going to be taken and that person is innocent. And the reality, of course, is that the systemic problems that bring innocent people to death row continue to exist. There are the problems of bad eyewitness identifications, of ill-motivated witnesses who accuse people of crimes that they themselves committed and somehow gain the confidence of the police. There is the phenomenon I would never have believed in when I was a prosecutor, the phenomenon of false confessions. But it turns out that people under psychological pressure, often people who are being interrogated by officers who are far more intelligent than they, that people can say things to inculpate themselves that aren't true. And as I said, I wouldn't have believed it, but it happens. And one of the great reforms that Tom in particular was responsible for in our Capital Punishment Commission report, and that really ought to be widespread throughout the criminal justice system, is the videotaping of the interrogation of murder case suspects. It should be, as I said, broader in application throughout the criminal justice system. And of course, it's turned out that people in law enforcement, many of them love it now because they're done with the totally fallacious motions to suppress statements that used to take their time and clutter the justice system and raise doubts about the probity of police officers who went in cases where there was no reason to doubt them. But the biggest problem in our criminal justice system since I started, and it continues to today, is underrepresentation. The American people continue to have an appetite to lock up bad guys, and we can't blame them for that. But they do not understand that justice doesn't come cheap. We have a process that grants rights to people, and if the gun is ever pointed at you, the gun of the criminal justice system, you understand how important those rights are. Tom used to say to us, well, would you think it was fair if somebody was doing that to your brother? And we forget that lesson too often. We do not have adequate funds in our system, not just to hire lawyers, and our public defenders do an extraordinary job, given how outmanned they are by the prosecutor's offices and by law enforcement. But we don't, not only do we not have enough money for lawyers, to hire lawyers, but we don't have enough money for investigation. I remember when I did I think the first thing I did for Tom in the U.S. Attorney's Office was to write a research memo about closing arguments and all the many different ways that the Seventh Circuit had shaken a finger at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois. And Tom said, I just wish I could get young lawyers to understand that lawyers don't win cases, facts win cases. And without adequate funds for the investigation of the defense of criminal cases, we will continue to imprison the innocent, notwithstanding the frequent good faith of prosecutors and police officers. And we need to remember that justice does not come cheap, that every time we eliminate funding for defense lawyers, for investigators, and I know that we are in straitened financial times, but every time we do that, we are voting, as it were, to send innocent people to the penitentiary. And we need to stop doing that. We as Americans take no pride in that, and we shouldn't. At any rate, I thank you deeply for this award. I am proudest of the company I now keep, and I salute all of you for your support for this wonderful project, and I thank you deeply for the honor that you've given me. Thanks very much.
This year, you all, and when I say you all, I mean our sponsors and supporters and wonderful friends of so many types, so many backgrounds. You all did the most important thing that a person can do. You helped to save a life. The name of the man whose life that you helped to save is John Grayson, and I'm going to introduce him to you shortly. John is here tonight, and before I do that introduction, I'd like to tell you a few things about the case. In September of 2001, 19-year-old John Grayson from Aurora was convicted of first-degree murder and attempt murder in Kane County. After his conviction, John was sentenced to 76 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections with an out date of 2057, many years from now, obviously. John was sent to Menard Prison. While at Menard, John's direct appeal to the appellate court lost. At that point, few people knew that John's jury had convicted an innocent man, and his legal options were certainly dwindling at that point. Several years later, an amazing thing happened. Two Aurora Police Department detectives, and I'm going to say their names because it's very important, Detectives John Munn and Darrell Moore. Detectives Munn and Moore received evidence which strongly indicated Mr. Grayson's innocence. Rather than simply disregarding that evidence under the banner of, we already have someone convicted for that offense, which, as Scott knows, we've heard that before, haven't we? Rather than disregarding the evidence under that banner, these detectives, under the direction of their commander and chief of police, began to reinvestigate the case in full. They also advised Mr. Grayson of the exonerating information, and that if their further reinvestigation continued to demonstrate John's innocence, that they would do what they could to overturn his convictions. Detectives Munn and Moore did indeed continue to reinvestigate the case, and that work continued to reveal that John Grayson was an innocent man. John, though, did not hear anything further about any of this for several months, and he reached out to our project for help. During 2011 and the early months of this year, we interacted with the Kane County State's Attorney's Office as they struggled to determine what should be done with the new exonerating evidence. By agreement, we engaged in certain forensic testing, and we put additional information and legal and factual arguments before the state's attorney for his consideration. And as part of advocating, that's what we do sometimes, is advocate, part of advocating that the new evidence warranted the full overturning of the convictions, we stressed that prosecutorial dynamics had changed in the past 10 to 15 years as awareness of the incredible number of wrongful convictions in this state and in the country as that knowledge became more widespread. We reminded the state's attorney that now the public and the prosecutor's duty to seek justice required prosecutors to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem when there was exonerating information of this nature. And on March 6th of this year, Mr. Joseph McMahon, the Kane County State's Attorney, a man of honor and integrity, did the right thing when he agreed to vacate Mr. Grayson's conviction and set him free because he was factually innocent. It was a great day for Mr. Grayson, obviously, and a wonderful day for our justice system. This case is remarkable for numerous reasons, but I will mention just three. First, it's remarkable because of the incredibly professional, thorough, and frankly, heroic actions of the Aurora police detectives and their command in not ignoring that which came to their attention, which exonerated John Grayson. And second, it's remarkable because of the equally professional and praiseworthy actions of the state's attorney of Kane County that led to the ultimate result. It's worthy to note what Mr. McMahon did in an effort to resolve his struggle over what to do with the new evidence. Among many other steps, he consulted various professional organizations and their standards for prosecutors in situations such as these. He assigned the case to prosecutors who had not been involved in the original trial, sort of a mini integrity unit, which obviously is something to applaud. And he took into consideration the information and arguments and other matters that our project provided to him and worked with us in regard to certain forensic procedures. The actions of both of these branches of law enforcement stand in brave and stark contrast with the many stories about how law enforcement will sometimes do anything to hold on to a conviction. We know of those cases. But fortunately, this case stands, as I said, in bold contrast to those other kinds of situations. I might add at this point that a huge part of the reason why the culture is hopefully changing is found in the work of many of you here today, but in particular our esteemed guests, Scott TUROW, Tom Fitzgerald, Senator Durbin. It is the work that they have done over the years in Congress, as prosecutors in the Scott case, as prosecutors in the Graylord case, representing Alex Hernandez, as defense attorneys for other innocent clients, as advocates to the governor and to the legislature and in Congress, obviously. It's those kinds of things and many more, and speaking out publicly in the Chicago Tribune and other well-recognized media sources. It's these kinds of things that have emphasized the vital goals of justice, of getting it right and making it fair. This has, in turn, laid the groundwork for good prosecutors like Joe McMahon to be able to do what he did. 15 years ago, I'm not sure that this could have happened in Illinois. I'm not sure. I don't think it could have. So thank you for your work that has led to this culture, this change in culture. I'm so proud to have worked with these officers and prosecutors. I'm hopeful that their actions and the actions of others in similar positions will contribute toward making this type of process the norm instead of the exception. And the third reason, I did mention three, the third reason why this case is remarkable is because there is a young man, one who spent nearly a dozen years locked up for a crime that he did not commit, who is now free and who has a new lease on life. And his name is John Grayson, and I'm proud to introduce him to you because his freedom and his presence here tonight, that's what this is all about. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without anything further, please welcome John Grayson. I'm also proud to introduce John's uncle, Mr. Larry Clark, who's standing to John's right. Mr. Clark has provided John with a home and with much love and encouragement and support in the approximately month that since his release. And what we've learned, and we knew this, but now we're living it, what we've learned is that getting someone out is one thing, and that it takes more good people to welcome a person like John who didn't deserve to go to prison back into society. And Larry Clark is that man in John's life. So John and Larry, the podium is yours. John is not the chattiest fellow. So Larry Clark, I believe, is going to have some words.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I got to give honor to God, who's truly the head of my life. But I come to tell you, out of 12 years and my nephew was locked up, I never stopped praying. See, I'm a praying man, so I kept on praying, and I knew one day that Jonathan would get out, because God showed me that in a vision. And I thank God for each and every one of you. I thank God for the Innocence Project, because I don't have a name for everybody, but you guys are doing a tremendous job. My work is to go out and tell the world about God. Your job is to get those innocent people out of jail. So we all are serving for God. We're doing God's work in one way or another. I want to thank God for everybody who participate. I want to thank God for the Aurora Police Department, because they told me that their job was not going to get people out of jail. Their job was to put people in jail. But thanks be to God that they seen something in a young man, knew he was innocent, and they didn't give up. Just like the Innocent Program didn't give up. Thank God for each and every one of you for coming out. Thank God for the governor. I want to thank God for the lawyer here. Help me, I'm kind of nervous here. Pat Morelli, I wrote him with him, knowing him all my life. I'm just kind of a little nervous now, excuse me. Thank God for him, because he was John lawyer. He lost the case, but that's all right, because he's here now, and he's still supporting John. God bless you all. Amen.
It truly doesn't get any better than that. As a lawyer, as an advocate, to see somebody that you've represented in a big ballroom in Springfield. Now, to close our program, certainly this project changes the lives of its clients. But by all reports, it also is an invaluable educational experience, and it changes the lives of its students. So when the time came to talk about who should close it up, we had a very enthusiastic volunteer, Rebecca Luke. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Before we end this evening's event, I want to go ahead and make sure that I recognize an individual that I've been working with for the past couple of months. Those of you might know that we had an art auction going on this evening, and I hope you took the time to go over and look at our pieces and possibly bid on them. But the individual who was responsible for those paintings is a client of the Ohio Innocence Project by the name of Alfred Cleveland. He's an artist, writer, and musician who is currently serving a life sentence for murder. In 1991, a local prostitute's body was discovered behind a shopping center in Lorain, Ohio. The victim, Marsha Blakely, had been stabbed over 20 times, her throat had been slit, and she had been run over twice. Mr. Cleveland's conviction was based on the testimony of a local drunk who claimed to have witnessed this crime and happened to owe Mr. Cleveland money. Despite no biological evidence, alibi witnesses that placed Cleveland in New York at the time, and several recantations by the star witness, Mr. Cleveland has remained incarcerated for 21 years. While continuing to fight for his freedom, Mr. Cleveland has channeled his frustrations with the justice system into his art and writing. His work can be seen in prestigious homes and offices worldwide. His most recent illustrations are included in the Comic Buyer magazine's 2008 graphic novel of the year, Tales from the Starlight Drive-In, which he partnered with illustrator Andrew Arthur Barry Jr. to dramatically capture the bleakness of the story based in the real Shawshank prison. Mr. Cleveland has also written a book called Diamond Bullets, 44 Laws Dispelling Illusions of the Game, depicting the stories of various inmates and street life within prison. He has used this book and his artwork to reach out to urban youth and encourage them towards positive goals away from a life of crime. Mr. Cleveland is a very powerful individual who I have had the great pleasure to get to know over the last few months via letters and phone calls and talking with his family. This man has very little hope of getting out of prison without a project like the Ohio Innocence Project behind him. 3 of his pieces were exhibited this evening. The first one was Stop, Turn Around, Take the Other Road, and I am happy to announce that Marilyn Perrine has won that piece. The second piece exhibited was Why, the tale of Robin Hood, and it was won by Chancellor Susan Cook. The final piece this evening, Flood of Lies, will be available for bidding until roughly 8:15 p.m. It is Mr. Cleveland's, as he says, it is his story. I encourage everyone to go take a look at it. It is very powerful to look at. Mr. Cleveland, I talked to him on the phone actually 2 days ago, and he wanted me to let everyone know that he is very deeply moved, that everyone is continuing to fight for not just his case, but clients throughout the country who are innocent. And as we end this evening's event, I would implore you to continue your support of the Innocence Project. Through the donation of your time, funds, and goodwill, you affect not only the lives of innocent men and women like Mr. Grayson, but you create a lasting change in society through the students who have gained valuable experience with the Innocence Project. Lessons about digging a little deeper for the truth buried underneath layers of uncertain science, political bias, and years of racial tension. Lessons about doing the right thing and being ethical in spite of a system that encourages otherwise. Lessons about valuing the dignity and sanctity of human life over conviction rates. These are the lessons our students have learned, and these are the lessons that we will take with us into careers as attorneys, victim advocates, forensic scientists, teachers, and policymakers. The ills of the criminal justice system are the responsibility of us all. But the unique partnership that exists at the Illinois Innocence Project allows you to have an impact that seeks to even the balance between truth and reality. That is why, on behalf of myself and my fellow students, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come out tonight to honor and support the individuals who have struggled so much in the cause of justice. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.